Salut! Today we're going to go over lesson 15. In this lesson we will learn about demonstrative pronouns and direct object pronouns. There's also a small part in the notes about the verb essayer, to try or to try on, but I won't mention it in this video, so please make sure you download the notes using the link below to get the whole lesson. Alright, first, the demonstrative pronouns. We have already learned the demonstrative adjectives in lesson 5. Using demonstrative adjectives, we learn to say things like this book or these windows. The demonstrative pronouns, because they are pronouns, will need to replace a noun. In English, the demonstrative pronouns are this one, that one, or these ones, those ones. But they can also appear in a sentence under the form the one that, or the one which, or the one who, or the one whom, and their plural counterparts, the ones that, etc. In this lesson, you will need to pay close attention and identify when words are a subject or an object. For example, are you able to identify the subjects and objects in the two following sentences? I talk to the one who loves John, and I talk to the one whom John loves. Here, who and whom refer to the one, and we used who for the first sentence and whom for the second sentence. We only use whom in English when it refers to the object of a sentence rather than the subject. If this was difficult for you, you need to pay twice as much attention today, because this will come up again around the end of this lesson. But let's put a pin in that for now and learn our demonstrative pronouns. Because French nouns can be masculine, feminine, singular, and plural, our demonstrative pronouns will need a form for each in French. After all, pronouns replace a noun, so they have to keep their quality. Here's a table. Here, the masculine singular demonstrative pronoun is celui, celui. The masculine plural demonstrative pronoun is ce, ceux. The feminine singular demonstrative pronoun is celle, celli. The feminine plural demonstrative pronoun is celle, cellis. Now, these are the demonstrative pronouns, but before we learn how to use them in more complicated sentences like the one we just saw with who and whom, I just want to tell you how to say something simple like this one, that one, these ones, those ones, when pointing at something, you know? If you take, for example, the masculine singular demonstrative pronoun, celui, you can add right after either ci, or la, la with an accent and make the words celui-ci and celui-là. The only difference between these two words is if something is here or there. So in this example, celui-ci will mean this one, as in the one that is here, and celui-là will mean that one, as in the one that is there. Now, you will need to change the actual pronoun depending on if the thing you're referring to is masculine, feminine, singular, or plural. In our example, we assumed we were talking about something masculine, for example, a book. If I'm showing you two books, I can say this one or that one. In French, it would be celui-ci ou celui-là. But if I showed you two dresses using the word robe, which is feminine, if I wanted to say the same thing, this one or that one, it would be in French celle-ci ou celle-là. Do you get it? Now, the demonstrative pronoun will not always be this one or that one, That's when we get into more complicated sentences where you will say something like the one that, the one which, the one who, the one whom, and the same with the plural. Now, there is a good news and a bad news. I'll start with the good news. When in these sentences you have the one or the ones, we will follow the same rule as is shown in our table using the demonstrative pronoun matching the gender and number of the noun it replaces. The bad news is that depending on if that pronoun is the subject or the object of the verb, you will need to use either the word qui, Q-U-I, or the word que, Q-U-E, regardless of if it's that or which in English. Although, I would say for the word who and whom, it gives you the answer if you already know how to use them properly in English. For example, using our previous two sentences, I talk to the one who loves John, and I talk to the one whom John loves. In the first sentence, we correctly used in English the word who, so this tells us that it is the subject of the verb to love. Think about it this way, who does the loving? In the first sentence, it is the one, not John. John is the object of that loving. So because in the first sentence the demonstrative pronoun is the subject of the sentence, we know the word who will be translated by qui, not que. Now, one last issue is that this sentence in English could refer to anyone. The one doesn't give us any gender, but in French we will need to have one. So the first sentence could either be translated in French by Je parle à celui qui aime Jean or Je parle à celle qui aime Jean. Now, the second sentence used whom correctly, because in the sentence I talk to the one whom John loves, it is not the one who does the loving, it is John, and the one is the object or recipient of that love. This is why the word whom will be translated by que here. Again, the English doesn't give us the gender of that person whom is loved. So we have two options to translate this sentence into French. Je parle à celui que Jean aime, or Je parle à celle que Jean aime. Now, why did I bother so much about subjects and objects here if we can simply translate who by qui and whom by que? Well, we're talking about people, so it's easy because in English you do have a rule and two words. But when we talk about things in English, we use that or which regardless. And you won't have any clue if it's an object or a subject unless you look at the verb and ask yourself that question. Let's take our same example, except instead of talking about people, we will talk about a cake. Except we will never mention the cake and we will use demonstrative pronouns. First sentence. I eat the one that is green. Second sentence. I eat the one that you like. In both these sentences, you could replace the word that by which, by the way, so it has nothing to do with that. What you have to do is ask yourself the question, which verb refers to my pronoun, and is my pronoun the subject or the object of that verb? In our first sentence, the verb is to be, in the one that is green. Now the pronoun that refers to our cake is the one. What is the subject of to be green? Well, it is obviously the cake. Therefore, it is the subject and we will need to use the word qui in French. So, this sentence in French will be Je mange celui qui est vert. We used celui, the masculine singular pronoun, because un gâteau is masculine. However, if we were talking about an ice cream, une glace, in French, we would have needed to use the feminine pronoun and our sentence would have been Je mange celle qui est verte. Now let's look at our second sentence. I eat the one that you like. Here, the verb that refers to our pronoun with the word that is to like. If that helps you, you can think of that sentence as two sentences. I eat the one, and you like that one. Now, is my cake doing the liking? No, the cake is liked. It is the object, and you is the subject in the one that you like, because you like that one, meaning you like that cake. Therefore, our cake is the object and our sentence will be in French, Je mange celui que tu aimes. Or again, if we were talking about an ice cream and not a cake, it would be Je mange celle que tu aimes, using the feminine pronoun. Alright, there are more examples in the notes to help you process this. I know this may seem difficult, but you can start practicing with the examples when showing t-shirts or dresses to people and asking them this one or that one, etc. to learn the genders and numbers of that pronoun and then proceed to the examples with the one that, the one who, etc. to focus on using qui and que. Now, one final point. We learned reflexive verbs 2 weeks ago. In the reflexive verbs, there is a reflexive pronoun. The reflexive pronoun allows you to refer to the subject as the object of the same verb. Think of it as a reflection, where I do something to myself, you do something to yourself, etc. Now, some reflexive verbs can also be non-reflexive verbs, and the action can be done to anybody or anyone. This other object sometimes will need to be replaced by a pronoun to make the conversation flow more easily. For example, I can wash myself, as we have learned using the reflexive verb se laver, but I can also wash a glass using the non-reflexive verb laver. And if I don't want to say a glass, I can say I wash it. It here is a direct object pronoun. Why direct? Well, there will be direct and indirect object pronouns, and we will learn the indirect ones next week. But basically, it depends on if a verb is direct or indirect. It sounds complicated, but it's quite simple. When the object of a verb comes with a preposition like to or at, it will be indirect. But when it comes directly, it will be direct. For example, I talk to her. Her is an indirect object pronoun because there is a preposition. But I love her. Her is a direct object pronoun because there's no preposition. Now, don't mix up prepositions and articles. I eat a cake is still direct. A is just an article here, not a preposition. However, I talk to a cake here. The cake is indirect because there is the preposition to. Now, some verbs can be direct and indirect. For example, I tell something to someone. The object something is direct, while the object someone is indirect because of the preposition to. But let's not bother too much with that yet. Also, some verbs will be indirect in English while being direct in French. But we will go over them as we run into them. The most common one, for example, is to tell, the verb dire in French. In French, you tell to someone, dire à quelqu'un. It is indirect, where in English you tell someone, direct. But let's go back to our direct object pronouns for now. And let's start with some good news. The direct object pronouns will only differ from the reflexive pronouns at the third person of the singular and plural. This means you already know more than half of them. So let's put a table with our reflexive pronouns on one side and our direct object pronouns next to them. Here you can see that instead of ce at the third person of the singular, our direct object pronouns can be le, la, or L apostrophe depending on the gender of the object. And if the object is plural, it will be les. This is all you need to learn for this part, provided you remember your reflexive pronouns for the other ones. In English, the reflexive pronouns were myself, yourself, etc. But the direct object pronouns in English are me, you, him, her, it, etc. If that helps you conceptualize it, you can just think of the English for now. So let's make this clearer by using the verb laver as an example. Here I mean the verb laver, not reflexive. If I meant the reflexive verb, I would have said se laver. The verb laver is direct. You wash someone or something, but not to someone or at something. In the following table, I will only use the subject I to show that the object could be anyone. But of course, you could replace the subject and conjugate the verb laver with every person. One exception here is that for the first person of the singular, I will use the subject to, because if I use the subject I, it would be a reflexive verb, where I would say I wash myself. I can say I wash me. So here is the list of everything or everyone that we can wash during the direct object pronouns. Tu me laves, meaning you wash me. Je te lave, meaning I wash you. Je le lave, masculine, or je la lave, feminine, meaning I wash him, or I wash her, or I wash it. Je nous lave, meaning I wash us. Je vous lave, meaning I wash you. Je les lave, meaning I wash them, the dishes, for example. All right, that's it for today. You have more examples in the notes and in the book. So please don't forget to read the explanations in the book and do the exercises there. And to also read the notes and translate the sentences in the end to practice. In the meantime, I hope you learned something and I'll see you on the next one. Au revoir.